Hello, and welcome to Centuries News Broadcast. Today, we take a look back at one of the most pivotal decades in American history, the 1960s. From civil rights to space exploration, counterculture movements to economic shifts, this was a decade of transformation. And to break it all down, we have our special guest, Ahmed Abu Shager.
Thank you, Renzo. The 1960s were truly a turning point for America. Let's start with one of the biggest struggles of the decade, the Civil Rights Movement.
The fight for racial equality was decades in the making, but the 1960s saw some of its biggest victories. Activists like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks fought against segregation and injustice. In the Greensboro sit-ins in the 1960s, in which 4 black college students refused to leave a segregated lunch counter, which sparked nationwide sit-ins. Later, in 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King led the March on Washington when he delivered his iconic I Have a Dream speech. After years of activism, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, outlawing segregation in public. However, it still existed. So despite these racial tensions, the tragic loss of Dr. Martin Luther King's life on April 4th, 1968 sparked riots in over 100 U.S. cities where the dream of equality lived on.
It's incredible how much change came from such painful struggles. But while civil rights activists fought for justice, a different kind of social movement was rising, the counterculture.
By the mid to late 1960s, many young Americans rejected traditional values, embracing peace, love, and a go-with-the-flow lifestyle. This was the birth of the hippie movement.
Absolutely. Hippies opposed the strict expectations of post-World War II American society and protested the Vietnam War, which had escalated after the Gulf of Tonkin Revolution in 1964. They believed in peace, free love, and self-discovery, often experimenting with psychedelic drugs like LSD as well as marijuana. The Summer of Love 1967 saw 100,000 hippies gather in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, the epicenter of the movement. We also have a video for that, so right here. Should play, right? No, next. Oh, wait. Oh, my bad.
Okay, and of course, it's not working.
Is it on?
Okay, let's continue. Summer of Love.
No.
Gate Bridge Park, and we have a random here. The date is 1967, July 15th. Summer of Love. What's your opinion on stuff? Summer of Love is we become so disillusioned. We think that money and power doesn't matter. All that matters is man. Love one another, dude. We're all human, we all deserve you. Summer of Love is a symbol for our eternal loving of people each other. All the people happy to be together. Alright, that's amazing, man. What do you think about the civil rights movement? Well, we're all humans, dude. We deserve rights. We all are equal, okay? Guess what? Me and that guy over there, we both need men, alright? So therefore, I think what the color of your skin is, what your skin is, you should always have rights, alright? Different from you, just as you are different from me, alright?
Alright.
Of course, no discussion of the 60s complete without talking about music and pop culture. The Beatles took over America by storm with Beatlemania after the 1964 US debut. Rock, jazz, and soul music flourished with artists like the Rolling Stones, the Supremes, and Jimi Hendrix. TV changed forever with shows like Star Trek and Sesame Street.
Fashion also changed. Tie-dye miniskirts and bell-bottom jeans became symbols of counterculture. But while some were dancing in the streets, others were racing to the stars. Let's talk about the space race.
The space race was the ultimate Cold War competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. It all began in 1957 when the Soviets launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, beating the United States. Determined not to fall behind, President John F. Kennedy delivered his famous lines, "We choose to go to the moon, his famous speech, "We choose to go to the moon," in 1962, right? After years of research and billions of dollars, on July 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the moon, and Neil Armstrong took one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The space race wasn't just about beating the Soviets. It led to major technological advancements, including early satellite technology, which later helped develop GPS and the internet.
That's right, and speaking of technology, let's talk about the economy and how it helped shape the decade.
The 1960s started with a strong economy, thanks to the post-World War II boom. The U.S. was one of the world's leading industrial powers, with high employment rates and rising wages. The 1950s and early 60s saw record prosperity fueled by new industries like automobiles, computers, and aerospace. However, the Vietnam War began to drain the U.S. budget, and by the late 1960s, inflation increased and the cost of living rose. The war effort took money away from social programs like education and healthcare, and while Nixonomics had temporarily held back inflation, it only served to suppress the problem without addressing underlying problems in our economy, such as foreign competition.
Women had been working in factories during World War II, but after the war, many were expected to return to being housewives. By the 1960s, women were demanding equal pay and workplace rights. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 was passed, and although women still face discrimination, second wave feminism began, with figures like Betty Friedan writing The Feminine Mystique, 1963, calling for women's liberation.
And let's not forget about the gay rights movement. That's right, the Stonewall riots in June 1969 marked a turning point in gay activism after a police raid at the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in New York City. Patrons fought back against harassment, sparking nationwide protests leading to the modern fight for LGBTQ+ rights.
The 1960s, okay. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us on the Santa Teresa News broadcast. See you next time.